Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Name's Justin Hoover, CHSA, Chinese Historical Society of America, and we are here to welcome you guys to this fabulous event. CHSA has been around for over 60 years as a cultural center, a museum, a learning center, a resource room, an archive, an oral stories site, and more. And over the years, we've been telling the story of these amazing Chinese American and API Americans doing incredible work, not only in terms of building the United States as we know it, pioneering in new ways across different diverse fields of professional work, telling great stories, writing great books, but also artists who are in the trenches, so to speak, doing the work of creating the landscape and the public environments that explore concepts of diversity, equity, inclusion through cultural production. Today we have this amazing group that we've assembled because they're fantastic artists and they're working with us on our new Bruce Lee show, which is called We Are Bruce Lee, Under the Sky, One Family, which will debut and open on February 5th. So this great group of artists have been working with us to create a specially commissioned mural in our Yick Gallery, which is the stage gallery in our main exhibition center at Clay Street. So a little housekeeping. If you guys are not members yet, please become a member of CHSA. Go to chsa.org. The link is in the chat right there. And you can also make a donation. We're funded by mostly by individuals. We do get grant funding. So thank you to the SFAC, GFTA, and to family foundations such as the Rose Pack Foundation, the Red Husky Foundation, Ken Howe, and other charitable donations that are supporting our work. So join CHSA, sign up for our emails, and make a donation if you can. Today, we will be talking about a couple of issues. We'll be talking about what it means to be a muralist of color, what it means to be making artwork in the public realm, in different ways, both in terms of mural arts, but also in terms of augmented reality. And then what it means to be making artwork from the perspective of a person of color in galleries in San Francisco and around the world. And lastly, what it means to be healing today. And how we're doing that. Is there a space for healing that we can find through our artwork? And so I'd like to invite everybody here to take a moment and to go and grab, whatever on your desk, whatever it is, your glass, so that you have a drink, and just think about it. And we're going to kind of make in our own minds a space of healing today, a container for that critical thought that's at the core of healing. And kind of set your own framework for the day to come at this with an open mind and to think, how can I maybe engage myself in a conversation of civics, of justice, of social engagement? And how does that mean we're healing the world, or what are we trying to achieve? So going forward with that in our minds now, let's start to advance into our conversation. Let's begin, go to our next slide, if we don't mind. Thank you so much. I would like to introduce our first two panelists out of our whole group. If you guys have questions from the audience, feel free to drop them in the chat and we will bring them in. And at any time, we'd like to invite our panelists to start their cameras and to bring themselves on here. Thank you, Elaine. So Twin Walls Mural Company is Elaine Xu and Marina Perez Wong, who are the dynamic duo behind the mural arts collaboration Twin Walls Mural Company. Amazing group, doing incredible work, homegrown here in the Bay Area, just really awesome artists. They believe in the power of visual narratives to capture and reflect a community's histories, struggles, dreams, and intention. Elaine was born and raised in San Francisco, graduate from Ruth Ozawa School of the Arts, so big love right there for Ruth Ozawa. She continued to study drawing and painting and art history at Maryland Institute College of Art. And in 2005, joined the Philadelphia Mural Arts program. Really great group. Love the Philadelphia program there. Visited them one time, just, they're doing excellent work. So check them out if you never have. She became a teaching artist. 2011, she began working for Precita Eye. So that's Susan Cervantes, just really doing killer work here in the Bay Area. And just a really strong community there. So yeah, Elaine feels most at home painting murals, creating art that is accessible and free for everyone. Marina Perez Wong is an artist born and raised in San Francisco's Mission District. She survived rare childhood cancer and spent the first few years of her life in and out of hospitals. It was there that she took to art as a form of communication, self-expression, and escape. Her artistic voice was influenced by her mother, a Bay Area photojournalist. who document the people and events of the 1980s through the lens of the mission's diverse artists, writers, muralists, and activists during the 1980s. Using bright colors, contrast, and semi-realistic subject matter, Marina's work is motivated by the healing of current and generational trauma, community, history, local and global politics, transformation, and education. Thank you so much for Twin Walls to be here. If you guys don't know them, check them out. You can see their work right now up at numerous sites around the Bay Area, out in public space, but also at SF MoMA. And I'd like to now ask our friends at Microwaves to turn on their cameras and bring themselves into the conversation. Macrowaves Art Collective is an art collective and creative studio composed of multidisciplinary artists and designers of color who specialize in producing immersive experiences through conceptual art, new media, and design. With us today, we have Jeffrey Yip, Dominique Chung, and Anam Awan. Jeffrey is an interdisciplinary artist of color based out of Oakland who produces installations and performances with an emphasis on using technology as a tool of creation. He unites the senses in an approach to building experience, often combining light and sound and physical as well as virtual spaces. He's got a deep love of tea and tea rituals around that one, so I got to share that with Jeffrey as well. We both share that love. Thematically, his art revolves around exploring technology imagined to facilitate healing as a form of radical justice, working collaboratively to create sustainable communities. Usually I have a nice pot of pu'er tea when I'm talking about this because my throat gets dry. I had to rush today to get here, so I don't have any tea with me today. And so hopefully I don't choke on this talk, but generally that would be, you see me drinking tea while I'm giving this talk. Dominique Chung is a conceptual artist and designer based in Huichin in unceded Lees John territory, Ohlone land. Excuse me if I didn't pronounce that correctly. I mean, maybe Dominique can help me with that later. Through the use of video, new media, and installation artwork, his work examines the relationship between publicly designated spaces, surveillance, control, and resistance. Anam Awan is an interaction designer and new media artist born and raised in Lahore, Pakistan, and currently based in Oakland on Ohlone land. Thank you for the acknowledgement. They craft mixed reality experiences by blending physical and digital media, centering queer, immigrant, and non-Western narratives. Their work manifests installations, projections, video, live visuals, and programmed electronics. And this is the group we have today. And I'd like to make a special thanks to the staff at CHSA as well, Sho and Kimberly and Angelo and all you great folks out there putting this together. Send your Q&As at any time. We'll use the chat function to interact. And I'll let you just acknowledge everybody here and also thank you guys for the land acknowledgement as well. So we'll move into the artwork right now. And let's start with our first slide here from Macrowaves. Shikata Ganai is a 5-channel sculptural video installation audio interview that uses slide projectors, ambient light, bedroom furniture, and projection mapped animated video collage on magazine cutout collage. It's a large installation that takes up physical space. It was on display at the Arts Commission Gallery, my favorite space in San Francisco. So shout out to Meg Schiffler there for running just a tight ship and keeping it real. And we brought this up because these artists have really diverse skills. We're going to be getting all over the place. We're talking about augmented reality. We're going to be talking about murals. We're going to be talking about installations. And here we have the first kind of mixed media, multimedia installation here that really speaks to hybridity and cultural identity that might have multiple variable elements to them or might be seen from multiple perspectives. The reason that I selected this piece specifically was because of its like all over sense when you're there to see it. There are screens that are small, there's screens that are big, there's physical objects. So I'd like to open this up right now with our first conversation with our artists and just say, you know, we are a group of diverse people. I myself am the son of a Chinese immigrant from Taiwan who's part Russian, and my father's an American. So I have mixed cultural identity, and we all have this kind of sense of intersectionality in our work. And your work physically in this one has a cross function there in that the objects are bifurcated by this wall. There's like dualities in design elements and light and dark, but there's also a space in between that's occupied by digital and electronic media. So I'd like to open it now to Macrowaves to just introduce yourselves, say hi, and then tell us a little bit about your practice in general, and then lead into this about how this piece, what this means for you in this work.
Hey, I guess I'll go ahead and speak. I'm Jeffrey Yip, and just thanks for the introductions. I'll go ahead and start talking a little bit about like this project and like so essentially, I want to give a shout out to our collaborator and fellow collective member Tina Kashawagi, who was a large part of this piece because we actually interviewed her and her great grand aunt who was actually in the internment camps. And so this particular piece, Shadikateganai, which translates to "it can't be helped," was so that Shadikateganai was the general sense at the time where folks who left the internment camps were just like, well, it can't be helped. And that was the mentality that they had to take to kind of like to have a sense of control and to make sense of like pretty much like the harsh lifestyle that they had to live during those times. And so this particular piece was kind of like a study into intergenerational experiences where we interviewed, Tina Kashiwagi, who is, Yansei, which is a fourth generation Japanese American, and her great grandaunt Christina, who was in the camp as a child, and kind of like having the juxtaposition of both their lifestyles and like how there might have been like what kind of like generational experiences have they shared potentially through trauma or potentially even healing. And so like part of the way that we did that was we interviewed them both and we had them both on display. And so we also kind of like used antiquated technology to kind of like show the right side, which is the great grand aunt's side. So basically it's a bedroom here. And so we divided the space into two, one depicting the younger generation, and then the second being like the more elder generation, and so basically using technology as a way to communicate is something that Macwaves does. And so we decided it made sense to kind of like use stuff like an old projector, a slide projector, and a CRT television and actual tape to kind of like document and record and present the information that Christina was sharing. And then we use more new media stuff like iPods, computers, and things of that nature, and projection maps, projection mapping on the other side to kind of like show Tina's story as a fourth generation Japanese American.
So thank you, Jeff. We also have a clip of this, which I would like to play. Show, please, if you're able to, let's get that. Thank you. That's real. Very cool. So yeah, we see there very much a sense of two different time periods. We see it kind of like, see the older generation, you see the kind of wallpaper that may be indicative of an old generation, that kind of tea ceremony. The other side, which is projection mapping, very pop media, a lot of conflating there of different time periods. So really beautiful piece. And let's, would anybody else from Macwaves like to add about this piece, Dominique?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. My name is Dominic. Yeah, with this particular piece too, one of the most interesting things about where this piece was being exhibited was actually in the San Francisco Arts Commission. They have a real strong history of supporting the arts in San Francisco. It is the birthplace of the Neighborhood Arts Program that gave birth to the 7 cultural centers that exist throughout San Francisco to support the arts in the community. This exhibition actually was a part of their 50-year anniversary of the Neighborhood Arts Program. And so for us, we have a very deep connection with these cultural spaces, with the artists that have continued to produce exhibitions there, to exhibit work. And so, I just want to kind of mention that, with this particular exhibition, it was really important for the curators, Kevin Chen and Jaime Cortez, to actually bring not just only younger generation, but also older generation artists who, paved the way for us. And so I just want to take a moment just to acknowledge a lot of the amazing work that was a part of that exhibition beyond our installation.
Yeah, thanks. It's also give a shout out there to Kevin Chen and to Jaime Cortez, who are 2 of the greatest Bay Area curators currently working, in my opinion. I think that they're visionary. And if you like their work, you can buy Jaime's new book, Gordo, which I haven't had a chance to buy. Has anybody purchased that yet? We should all get a copy of that. It's a good one. So anyway, totally amazing curators. And yeah, the Arts Commission is great. And they do have a long history of this. So thank you, Dominic. Anum, would you care to introduce yourself and add anything to this?
Yeah, sure. So actually this project happened right before I joined Macrowaves, but I was able to go and see it in person, and it was, it was totally incredible, because I think with my own work where I was at, I was trying to explore some of these themes and elements and technologies, and just to like witness it and see that there was, other folks like working with similar themes was really inspiring. And I don't know, I think in this piece, I just love how much remixing is happening in terms of old and new technology coming together, and this element of like intergenerational storytelling, and just like how sort of well designed and like packaged, and just like the whole way that it's displayed also was super interesting. And yeah, it really inspired me to keep following Macrowaves till I was able to become a part of them.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's touch on the subject now of healing, because we're talking about what it means to be in a space of healing. I think there's a bigger kind of cultural process right now we're going through healing, trying to get out of this pandemic, trying to address historic wrongs that have been done to our various cultures, be they African American, Chinese American, Japanese American, or general exploitation at the hands in general of white power and the histories of that. But let's move to our next slide and talk about what a healing space could look like. This is yeah, but you can play it. That's okay. I'll hold on.
Symbolizes expression of truth, communication, perfect form, and patterns. I allow myself to express my truth. I will use my powers of communication to connect with others. Inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale to the next color, indigo blue.
Okay, so let's give that a pause right there. And so let's talk about this piece. So this is a virtual healing space, and let's discuss what that means. What are the goals here? How did you establish this? What platform? Please let us know more depth here about what it means to have this virtual healing space for you.
Okay, yeah. So, when the pandemic hit, and and on top of that, like the whole George Floyd situation happened, and I've been kind of like following violence against Black folks, from the police for a while now, and so that's kind of always been heartbreaking too, and we definitely need there to be like more solidarity and things of that nature. But specifically with the George Floyd kind of like situation that happened, I feel like there was a lot of people that were awakening, and there was a lot of like more solidarity and things of that nature. And just like seeing all that pain and all that hurt, and like a lot of people in our immediate community were depressed and all those things, we kind of like first developed the idea of a color meditation, because we had to kind of like figure something out through in a non-physical space because of the dangers of COVID. And one of the things we developed first was the color meditation, where basically we would cycle through a bunch of colors, and there would be like a guided meditation through that. And then we developed the project further, and kind of like for a commission for the YBCA, created a virtual healing space for, well, specifically we created a virtual gallery space, and the virtual healing space was one of the projects that existed inside the virtual gallery. And so this is kind of just like interactive space where people can join in, and there could be multiple people in there. Everybody got to choose from a Chinese zodiac, their avatar, to like walk around in the space. And you can kind of go in there and chat with each other and things of that nature. And kind of like the whole idea was collective healing and collective breath. And so like under like, you know, under the stars as one family, like, you know, the Bruce Lee exhibition is coming up, just like all breathing under the same breath through this virtual medium was kind of like the idea. And so yeah, that was part of the idea of that. And you know, we saw a need for that, and like creative ways for healing within the arts was part of like, you know, the conceptual aspect of it. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what platform are you using this? How does one interface with this virtual space? Do you see it on your phone? Do you see it in the gallery space? What's the way you connect it here?
Oh, so basically you can connect online to it. It's the exhibition is currently over, but like basically you just go onto your browser. It was like hosted on our website, and whoever signed up for it got an invite, and then basically they got a link, and then so basically people would just join into the virtual gallery, and then you know, find their way into the virtual healing space.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just one of the projects inside the gallery.
When I see this work, I always think of like a futuristic version of James Turrell or Joseph Albers, or these kind of like historic color theorists, you know, and like what it means to be, you know, like overwhelming yourself with color for that healing vibe. Dominic, I see you nodding. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, color has such a you know, a major impact in, you know, our entire society. Thinking about, you know, the colors that we see in murals and nature, you know, color has a major influence in us as human beings. And so, like Jeff said, you know, a lot of turmoil, a lot of like just violence, senseless violence that was occurring during this time. And, you know, as artists, like we were trying to figure out a way to connect with folks virtually, you know, and so this virtual exhibition was an opportunity not only for us to create a virtual healing space, but also to connect other artists who wanted to showcase work digitally. A lot of the galleries and exhibition spaces were not really readily available. And so, you know, this was a way for us to carve out an alternative space to also support our fellow community of artists. Yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to share about this project.
Thank you, Dominic. Let's switch to the next slide right now. I want to work on the, exactly. So would somebody like to describe this? I mean, I could read the idea, but we're talking about here COVID and health. And this is a video you guys have made. Anam, perhaps you would like to add, or somebody else, Jeffrey, who would like to talk about this work. Very interesting related to COVID and the specifics of a health crisis today.
I think I'll let Jeff talk about this one since he worked on this one primarily.
Yeah, I guess I did a lot of the work on this one. Yeah, so I mean, essentially it was just like a fun project. Shout out to Smart Bomb, which is like kind of like a futurist music show out in Oakland, and they do a lot of great stuff with sound, and like they've been doing a lot of video stuff since the pandemic has hit. This program called VHS, and we were fortunate to be a part of that. And essentially, you know, they asked us to make a video, you know, whatever video we wanted. And I think at the time that was like right when the pandemic hit, so we were conceptualizing doing a piece that kind of like people can identify with. And so basically we followed this kind of, we created this narrative about this hazmat being, and we followed their kind of like search for normalcy in the time of COVID, around Oakland. So
I love the basketball scene. Show, I believe we have a 1 minute clip of this. Could we roll that clip? Show, you can stop it there. That's great. So you can check it all out online, and go check out Macrowaves at their website. Really fantastic group, and I'm so excited to see their new work at CHSA, which is a 4-channel animation that's going to be projected in the YIT Gallery in the same space as the Twin Walls mural, and in fact, interacting with it as a surface projection mapped to the mural itself. So I'd like to move into this space right now. Another form of public space work is the work of Twin Walls Mural Company. As we've mentioned, Twin Walls has done work all over the country and internationally, and here we see work in Valencia, on Valencia Street, 18th of Valencia. Their work has many different, the work varies in form from large-scale murals to small paintings, but usually there are public space pieces that take up a large wall. So Elaine and Marina, Elaine, why don't you start and tell us a little bit about your work and what this piece in particular means to you?
Actually, Marina, you want to start with this piece? This one's a very personal piece.
Great.
Yeah.
So this one, I mean, the story about this piece it's a pretty big one. So I'll try and give you the fast forwarded version. This is on the corner of 18th and Valencia. It was commissioned by the SF Arts Commission through their Street Smarts program. The owner of the building had wanted a mural here, and there's a taqueria on the corner called El Buen Sabor, which means the good flavor. And initially when we were brainstorming, Elaine was, we wanted to reflect the community, we always do. But Elaine had suggested the hummingbirds, and I was like, yeah, that's great. I love the hummingbirds, but wait a minute, because the hummingbirds are a reflection of the Aztec war god. And on that corner, just a year prior to this, like right at that very spot, Elaine and I were almost assaulted by 2 guys. We were with our friends, and one of them pulled out a big giant knife. It was bigger than him. In any case, it's a much deeper story. But we wanted to make sure that we toned down that energy and made it more about nature and the feminine energy and kind of being restorative for the community. Because at the time I was a teacher, and the biggest thing for me was that kid's look in my face, like he was like an empty shell. So we wanted to kind of not save him exactly, but to help him out in some way. So this piece was initially about that, and we were thinking about the different goddesses that we would show and represent. Koyal Shalki being the goddess on the very top, it's the moon goddess. And I'll get to that in a second. She's got waves surrounding her, so that's the water goddess. And you can see these big feet on the bottom. That's the unseen. That's like the Mother Earth, basically, or Virgin of Mary, or whatever you call her. And there's a little corn goddess too. And you can't see it here, but right in the middle is a baby corn, because Elaine had just had her daughter. So that's representing Elaine's daughter. And that big swoosh is called the Olin, and it's a piece on the Aztec calendar that says, it's basically like change. So it's on the calendar as like a form of transformation. And so we wanted to make it positive change moving forward. And of course, the dahlias are there as a symbol of growth. And it's the symbol of the San Francisco flower, but also the Mexican flower. So it's in relation to our freedom mural. It's kind of a freedom mural sister. But
I love it. I love how personal this is. It has such a personal story. And what's interesting also is the way you're talking about softening the energy in the public space. And that's, when you're doing mural arts, you are inevitably interfacing directly with everything on the street. All the love, the joy, people love it. They tell you about it, but there's also the crazy that comes to you when there are people yelling at you and saying stuff. So it's difficult to do public work because you have to literally be public. But this piece has such a powerful aesthetic, first of all, with the flowers, with the hummingbirds, and then with the gods that are built into it. And it's just a really powerful dedication of love and gentleness in public space. Elaine, would you like to add anything to that about this piece in particular, or the way that murals work in general? I'd like to invite you to speak as well.
Well, this piece became even more personal, and we found out, I guess shortly after the design got approved, that Marina was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And this mural was one of her last murals before she started chemo, right? And then, well, you could talk about
it was the last mural.
Yeah, it was the last.
I couldn't finish that flower that's in the center on the right. Mm-hmm. And so this mural became about my rebirth, in a sense. The goddess on top is normally depicted severed, and there's a whole story behind that, but we basically put her back together. And the idea is that all of her homegirls are putting her back together. She's whole again.
And we're putting Marina back together. So this became like even more, personal piece. And Marina had to start chemo shortly after we started it. And I was out there a lot on my own. And it was hard, I was like used to painting with my twin, and sometimes I would think like, what would Marina do? Okay, Marina would make this brighter. But I loved her flower. She was like, just finish it. The owners were super understanding, but she was like, just finish it. I don't feel good. And we left it. I was like, no, Marina, you are going to come back and finish this. And she did.
Mm-hmm. Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Very powerful piece. Because we're talking about public space, I'd like to actually switch to another piece about public space in a different way that talks about augmented reality. And here we have Macrowaves doing a piece that I love in San Francisco. That's at the Kite Shop on Grant Avenue, called Alternate Realms, made last year, and dealing with Qingming and like the altar sweeping process, or the altar making process, and what the spiritual bond between ancestors can be. So here's a connection, again, not necessarily gods and worshiping a deity, but spirits and worship in a different way. So there's room here. Again, two different ways we see a public space engagement through the arts. So microwaves, like to throw it back to you guys, somebody who would like to speak. Please tell us the details about this, around what it means to be using AR public space, how augmented reality and the tour, the function of the tour itself works, and what it means to be moving the spiritual realm into public space and through this kind of virtual technology, or I should say augmented reality technology. Thank you.
Yeah, so with Alternate Realm, this project came about during a time when there was a pretty much a rise in anti-Asian, anti-AAPI violence that was taking place across the country. And for us, this project was a way for us to try to facilitate, you know, a safe space, virtually and also in person, for communities to support a lot of the Chinese business owners in Chinatown, as said. We really focused on utilizing interactive technology like AR as a way to, you know, share the stories about, you know, the experiences that these folks are going through. You know, we really wanted to shed light to the people behind these businesses, because a lot of times when we support these businesses, it's very transactional. You know, sometimes there are moments where we connect with the owners and understand their stories and their struggles, but most of the times it's not. And so we really wanted to take this moment to pause and to really have a deeper connection with the folks that are in our community. And one thing that we wanted to focus on, you know, with this project was to really facilitate ancestral healing through storytelling. We really wanted to also encourage folks to contribute direct aid to, you know, a lot of these businesses during a time when, you know, economic activity in these neighborhoods are low. There's a lot of fear, a lot of anti-Asian rhetoric that was being passed around. And so, yeah, for this project, we really felt like it was really important to, you know, facilitate that experience. And so with this project, it started off with a lot of conversations that we had with the business owners. Majority of the members in our collective are AAPI. And so for us, it was an opportunity to connect with, you know, folks that are, you know, in our community. And a lot of the conversations that we had about their spiritual connection with their ancestors was an opportunity for us to kind of reflect and also connect and relate. And so a lot of the artists that created AR altars for this tour drew inspiration from the conversations that we had directly with our community. And each piece is inspired by, you know, different topic, different themes. And, you know, all of that could, you know, I could go on and on about the different artworks on display. But yeah, I mean, if folks are really interested about this project, the exhibition is over, but we still are facilitating these AR altars directly on our website. And so folks can still learn about the work.
Great, and let's bring up the promo map, so you can kind of check it out. So this is the self-guided walking tour. Portsmouth Square, Washington Bakery, Lily's Hair Salon, and the Kite Shop. Little Perez and Golden Gate Fortune Cookie Factory. So really exciting idea about public space and about intergenerational ancestral healing and ancestral worship. Would anybody else like to say anything about this before? If not, we'll move back to Anum, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch upon our use of augmented reality in this project. I think augmented reality as a medium is still so new that we're finding out what appropriate use cases for it are. But I think this project was a pretty successful example of it, because we got to make the work super contextual. Like, the altars were designed specifically for these businesses that you just named, and we were able to place them right outside of the business itself. And so, you know, people got to go and have sort of their own individual experience, but like have it still be in the Chinatown neighborhood and connected to the businesses. Also felt super COVID safe because everyone's sort of viewing it on their own phone, and so you can socially distance and sort of just feel out however you want to experience this. So I think this whole idea of, like, again, remixing old technology, new technology, and facilitating intergenerational narratives and stories through augmented reality was, I think as Macrowave, something that we're very excited to be exploring more of.
That's a very good point, Adam. Thank you so much. Yeah, CHSA, I'm new there 6 months in, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I'm there is, I'm not interested as a organizer and a community mobilizer in sticking to silos, like the history museum stays with photographs and artifacts, the new media artists only do things on the internet. There's a conversation to be had there in which we can help each other and talk to each other. And, so we have CHSA is working on augmented reality in relation to our archive collection, what that means, how they can be used in public spaces. We have photo histories and archive histories in these, of all, like most of the buildings in Chinatown that date back to the 1850s, that are photo documentation of it. So we're looking, how can we also facilitate stories in that way? And I love seeing what you guys are doing as, you said, a use case situation in which you're facilitating dialogue, and you're creating those narratives. So, the fact you guys are AAPI is super important as well to me, that you're able to bring this new way that we engage with technology. Data feminism is a really interesting topic of these days, which we should have a whole different conversation just on data feminism and what that means and who's creating our data, who's managing our data, where our data gets compiled, who has the agency in collecting and utilizing our data as a society. So this will be something you guys can hang on, hear some more of down the road with CHSA. But I also want to say that Kevin Chen will be curating a show at SFSU in which you can see more of this augmented reality work. So pay attention to Macrowave's website; they'll be promoting that. But I'd like to switch it back to Twin Walls, look at another piece of theirs, and talk more about what that means. Let's talk about our ancestors' wildest dreams. And before we actually get to this, I would like to also just give a shout out to two people who recently passed. Hung Liu, of course, the famous painter. God bless her, and may she rest in peace. Just a huge influence on me and many people, but also Yolanda Lopez, who was a fierce social justice advocate and dealing with sacred work and demanding justice through her paintings, iconic Virgen de Guadalupe series, and more. So I just want to give those shout outs real quick to community that might be connected with us. But let's see, here's a new piece for SF MoMA. So our ancestors' wildest dreams, this one's in a very fancy building. Marina and Elaine, could you talk a little bit about what this means to you?
Yeah, I can start. This project was conceived last year, in the midst of COVID, protests and statues coming down. And Marina and I were also, we put a lot of thought into how we can manifest things in our work that we want to see, like healing, for example. We wanted fresh air, we wanted everybody to breathe again, and we thought about, we also wanted to heal Marina. So we were looking at chakras, talking about color. We really focus a lot of our murals have a really bright colors and are very specific colors. So the green, that's the
heart chakra.
The heart chakra, right? That is the color of the heart chakra. So that's the energy emanating throughout the mural. And also growth. We also like to put a lot of green in there because we need more growth, more actual, more of that.
And the sakura tree is also a symbol of the heart chakra. Elaine, you found that out, right?
And it's kind of a wishing tree, manifesting our wishes. But yeah. So while we were designing, oh yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you the kind of the ground space, which is water? You're creating some depth there physically to move our subjects deeper into the pictorial space, but you're also depicting some flood that perhaps might be biblical, a proportion that cleans or something that's lost. I see police cars in there. I see statues, which might point to the Confederate monuments that have come down. Will you talk about what is depicted in this water space?
So it's all of that. Elaine and I normally, in all of our murals, there's usually an element, what we like to call our hidden FU. This one, not quite so hidden. But we were thinking, in terms of things, that neighborhood is built on landfill, it's built on ships. And so we were thinking about things below the surface and all these monuments coming down of these colonizers. And we were trying to think like, what would it have been like if we didn't have those negative people to begin with, if we had sunk their ships from the get-go. Only the bad ones, not the good ones. And, especially, in view of the girls that are on top, we were thinking about kids that are in cages at the moment. So the border, and the police cars are actually the border patrol cars. They're not like just any police cars. But we wanted to show that the girls that we've painted are above them. That's something that's sunken, it's below. They know that it's there, but they've risen above it and they're
Thriving.
Mm-hmm. I see some really great kids here, some women. So I see some diverse faces. We see an Aztec dancer. We see somebody's potentially doing a modified ballet posture, a little girl jumping a star in the air, maybe another dancer from Mexico, perhaps, with this beautiful red dress. So there are a lot of identities depicted here, and I see you're going for a very broad democratic view of who is in our population. But we ourselves in this panel, like I have the privilege of passing as white, so I've always been able to kind of be in different places. Can we talk about our identities for a moment and how we identify as individuals and how that relates to our work as a whole?
Yeah, let's do it.
Because I just see so much richness here in terms of who you're depicting. And I know, Marina, you yourself identify as a mutt, you said, right?
Mutt,
so
yes.
Why don't you begin with what that means to you?
Well, and it's not for no reason that we chose these girls. 4 of them are from the Radical Monarchs, and the 2 on the left, far left, and the 1 on the right are Oakland School for the Arts students where I used to teach. And they were reflections of Elaine and I. That's what we wanted in the mural. We wanted our dynamic because Elaine and I always balance each other out. No matter what, and we're always striving for the positive. And I think, being that we're from the Bay, the way we perceive ourselves is, yes, like, of course, we look Asian-ish on the outside. But, my family is mixed. My dad was Chinese and Native American and Spanish, and my mom is full Mexican. So, and I grew up on my mom's side. So, it's less to do with the way that we're perceived by other people and more to do with how many people we connect with on the inside. Because I feel like between Elaine and I, like we're just open to meeting everyone and being part of everything that we can be to support our goals and our ideals.
Yeah, as community public artists, we have such a great job to be able to work with different communities and meet people from all over. And like Marina said, yeah, we're Chinese American, but my family is actually my mom was born in Africa, so I never felt like I don't speak the language, and I don't have the same, we don't celebrate the same, we don't have the same traditions. So I always was trying to find my identity in the Chinese community as well. And I feel like we do that through our art and relating to many different communities, not just being Asian American.
Good, beautiful sense of solidarity and just a broad scope and intersectionality. And that's the interesting thing about the CHSA, Chinese Historical Society of America, for so long has been a society for the Chinese, and that's important, and we need that. But it's also time, I think, to broaden what it means to be a person of color today in the Bay Area. And Chinese, as a Chinese American, who I said, like I mentioned, I'll tell myself because it's where I know from, starting from. My mother is part Russian. She never felt welcome in Taiwan because she was from mainland China, and at the same time she was part Russian, so she never felt really welcome anywhere. And then in the United States, she came here, she was a foreigner, an immigrant, and so she didn't feel welcome here either, and she had to deal with racism here. And so I grew up seeing that, and that has always been affected me deeply, is to see how my mom never really felt comfortable anywhere. So she never said she was Chinese, though she looks full Chinese. And so I'd like to open up to microwaves too. Like, what do you guys think? I mean, you guys are Asian, Pacific Islander, or other identifying. So tell us a little bit about how you identify and what that means for your art and the way you see that relating to this conversation.
Well, as a collective, Justin, we identify as POC, peoples of color, person of color, and I think that's, in a sense, for me, that's like, it's powerful because like it's showing representation, that there are people, people of color, they're doing these type of things. I think as a Chinese American growing up, I think a lot of Chinese Americans, that were born here, have this shared experience where there's a sense of like, not feeling represented, like in the media and all these things, and essentially trying to what's the word? Essentially trying to kind of like make your presence kind of like be seen and be heard and things of that nature. So part of like alternate realm specifically was to kind of like my own research to kind of like see how we can reconnect with the older immigrant generation and kind of like and relearn some of these like forgotten things in the new generation, like the older traditions like Qingming and like ancestral like kind of like worship and things of that nature, like a lot of the younger generation that's lost on. And so part of us kind of like bringing augmented reality, which is this kind of like a modern form of tool for creation and this like contemporary form of creation, and kind of like marrying it with this kind of like with Qingming, which is like this kind of like older tradition, and like more of the elder generation is more privy to that. And so kind of like marrying those two things, kind of like bridge that gap between the generations was part of like why we did the alternate realm project. But yeah, but just essentially just growing up and like feeling the need to assimilate was like a large part of like the upbringing, and like so basically it is important to kind of like, hey, like I'm Chinese American, or hey, I'm a person of color, to kind of show that we do exist and we're out here and we're doing positive things, and so
well, that's really important, Jeff. I thank you for that. Let's not forget also the context under which you guys are working with CHSA. It's the Bruce Lee show, right? Bruce Lee, we are one family. We are Bruce Lee, Under the Sky, One Family is the name of the exhibition. It'll be open on February 5th next year. You guys are almost done with this work here, so we're going to keep it secret. We're not going to show it right now, so you guys are not going to be able to see a sneak preview, so you got to come when the show's open. But sorry, I wanted to give it away with all my stuff. I was like, you can't give that shit away, Justin. I was like, all right, fine. So anyway, what's important to remember is Bruce Lee was like one of those people who refused to assimilate in the same way that Chinese men were expected to, and he refused to fit a mold. This idea of fluidity, be like water, was more than just a statement. That's more than like a t-shirt. That's a reality. That's about defying the expectations. In Hong Kong, he was not Chinese enough to train under Ip Man. His training partners tried to kick him out of the school because they were first they were jealous of him. They scapegoat the fact that he had part European heritage, and he was born mixed race as well, to get him out of his training center. And then of course in America he's never American enough or white enough. His accent, he was too accented, so, he was horribly marginalized, but he persevered in a way that trailblazed a path for people of color, for diverse audiences, and you guys are, I think, in a way, living in that legacy a little bit, because you're people of color doing incredible work, breaking new boundaries in this area. Most people think technology artists, they think like Northern European, techno, whatever, or they think Silicon Valley or something. I think the POC dynamic there for a technology collective is vital to talk about what it means to be an artist today. So if you guys don't mind, maybe talk for a moment about what we're expecting from and can expect to see in the Bruce Lee mural you guys are producing with the animation overlay.
Well, definitely, Bruce is the connector, the bridge. So I think all of us were very interested in his philosophy, and finding that that we're all related. We're not independent from each other. We're all part of one world. So yeah, and like the greater totality, right? So everything is a part of everything.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Balance and harmony. Sorry, Dom.
Yes to both of that. And I think this is just also, for us as, AAPI artists, this is an opportunity for us to process Bruce's history and his legacy and his impact, on the world and to us as well. And so I think what folks can expect from this work that will be shown is, our interpretation and the way in which we are connecting with, Bruce. And yeah, I mean, without, disclosing too much information, I agree. Folks should definitely stay tuned and check out the exhibit when it opens.
Would anybody else like to mention anything about this, or can we open up to panelists, to audience? Anam, would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I think just in terms of thinking about being people of color in this space and sort of zooming out a little bit more and looking at trends across different industries, like you mentioned, Silicon Valley, the tech industry, Asian representation is on the rise, and that is something that feels a little complicated to sit with, to be in a place where sometimes, you can't really continue to speak about how you feel underrepresented. And I think there's also a lot of like complexity and nuance in being Asian, because Asian as in like East Asian and South Asian mostly, and not other Asian, and South Asian as in Indian. And so I think the broader thing to think about is like, as we continue to have more representation, are we continuing to work against white supremacy within our communities and anti-Blackness and like a whole, bunch of other things that like come under the umbrella of white supremacy? Or are we, actively taking up space and using our representation to talk about these things? And just sort of, I guess, going back to some of the Macrowaves projects, I think those intergenerational conversations that usually happen behind the scenes in our work is sort of our way to be bridging those gaps and doing that community building work. And so, yeah, it's just so tricky to sort of get lost in this like POC representation narrative sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it's important that we address these, because calling it out is a way to claim space in the media landscape, and to operate without being overtly cognizant of it, I think fails to address the power that there is there to take over space in the media landscape. Murals in public space do this. Advertisements across your screen do this. The new Shang-Chi 10 Rings movie does this. Representation in our public spaces is important, and to call it out and to support that further is how I see healing and connection and community being built. So let's open up. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to drop a chat or raise hand or question answer.
Actually, I was just going to say, I just wanted to say thanks to Melanie and Melora for putting us on. And they're an example. I mean, they're from the African American Culture Complex, and they're, part of our team.
Yeah, we had a couple people to call out too. Anthony Tai was helping so much on this, and you know, Melanie and Laura are great. Marina, I didn't mean to cut you off if you want to keep going. And then there was another group of folks too that Anthony wanted me to shout out to.
Definitely shout out Carolyn, because
Exactly.
been like a great inspiration, and you know, Macrays had the luxury of collaborating with Carolyn before at another SF
AC exhibition.
Alchemist AC show, Continuous Threads, and so that was like a really amazing project that Anim also had participated in that one as well. If you wanted to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, it was really amazing working with Carolyn, and thanks to her for introducing us to this team of folks.
So Melanie and Laura Greene are the executive directors of the African American Art and Culture Complex, AAACC, part of the Arts Commission, and just really fabulous curators and DJ radio hosts. So if you want to listen to them on, what's the radio station? KPU, is that still, or what is it? No, it's, I forget the name of the radio station, but they're radio DJs you can check out. And Carolyn, would you be so kind as to shout her last name out, just to make sure? I don't remember what it was off the top of my head. Okay. So thank you for that. Does anybody? Great. And Carolyn's role as well in this. So thanks, everybody. And I guess there are no questions from the audience. No? Great. Well, let's just remind everybody, CHSA, China's Historical Society of America Museum. We're currently closed, renovating, preparing for this exhibition. We're located at 965 Clay Street. You can check us out at chsa.org. And Bruce Lee, we are Bruce Lee, One Family Under the Sky. Special thanks to all the folks that have been mentioned today already. I also got a shout out to Amy Burke, who is a close collaborator with many folks here. Yolanda Lopez passed away recently, rest her soul. Melanie Malore for helping put this together. Carolyn Qualley for her work as well in this. Kevin Chen and Jaime Cortez for their creative work. And then Anthony Tsai and the whole creative team, CHSA staff, and all you artists out there too for being just, you know, so dedicated to your craft. Check us out online, and unless anybody else has any questions, yeah, that should be the day.
Cool. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Justin.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Thank
Jay.
you.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you,
We're honored to have you here. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye, Kunwal. Thank you.
Bye.